Today we're going to talk about special cases. So there are many times where we have the same polynomial being multiplied by itself. So this is a plus b squared. So what this really is a plus b being multiplied by a plus b. So a lot of times people will go about this the wrong way, and I'll show you what the wrong way is. But all we're doing here is just like we did before. We're multiplying the pieces the same as we did previously, our little FOIL method or our Smiley Man method. So we end up with a squared plus ab plus ab plus b squared. Then we combine our like terms. So we have a squared plus 2 of these, 2ab, plus b squared. And that's our final answer. What people will often do is they will try to square the a, and they will square the b, and they will leave it here. And you notice this is not correct. So be very careful. So I'm going to show you a quick way to do this, that when you see these, it helps you do them quicker and more in a mental fashion. So we're going to stay under a, and we're going to do a couple more examples. So we have y plus 7 squared is our next one. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the little quick method. So what you do here is you square the first one, so y squared. You square the last term, so 7 times 7 is 49. Make sure you pay attention to the signs. And then you multiply 7 times y, so you get 7y, and then you double it. So 7 plus 7 will give you a 14y, and that would be your answer. So let's try another one. So if I give you this one, x plus 9 squared, and I'm going to go ahead and give you 3x plus 2 squared. I want you to pause the video and see how quickly you can do them. So here are your answers. The second one might have been a little tougher. Remember, you had to square the 3x. So 3 squared is going to be 9x squared. Square the 2, you get 4. Then multiply the 2 times the 3, and then double it. So you got 6x, and then you doubled it. So times 2, you got 12x. All right, let's try one that is a little 1-star under this A category. So I'm going to give you 2m plus 11n squared. See how quickly you can do this one. This one is a little 1-star. So here's your solution. Was that as easy? So make sure you really pay attention, and don't forget when you're putting those together, when you're multiplying these middle terms, you got 22 and then doubled it, and it had an m and an n. So you had to make sure that middle term was there. Now let's move on to the second rule. The second rule looks a little bit different because it has a different sign in the middle. So we're going to say a minus b squared this time. So we're still looking at the same thing as far as what this actually is. This actually is a minus b times a minus b. When we do that traditionally, we know that we multiply the first term, the last term, the second term in the first one to the last one, and then the middle one. So full or smiley face man. So we end up with a squared minus 2ab when we do the combining like terms plus b squared. So let's use our rule. We would actually square the first term, square the last term, but be careful, this is a negative b. So a negative times a negative gives us a positive b squared. Then when we look at this and we multiply these together, we get ab, but it's a negative ab, and then we double it. So we have a negative 2ab. All right, I'll give you a couple more examples, and one of them is going to be a 3-star. So see if you pause the video and see how quickly you can do that. So here's our first example. M minus 6 squared. And the 3-star, I will make 4x squared minus 7y squared, all squared. So pause and see how quickly you can do those. So here are the answers. The first one should have been pretty easy. The second one, you have to be careful. Remember, you're squaring the first one. So 4 squared gives us 16. X squared, remember our rules when we're raising a power to a power. It's multiplying, so we got to the 4th. The last one, we had a negative and a negative, so that's how we got the positive. 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49. Y squared raised to the second power gives us the y4. In the middle term here, where we got the negative 56, we multiplied a negative 7 times 4 and got negative 28. Then we doubled it. That's how we got the 56. Then we're combining these terms. So we got x squared and y squared when we're multiplying. They're not like terms, the x's and the y's, so we don't raise it to any further exponent. All right, let's move on to the third rule. For the third rule, you'll notice there's a little bit difference. We have the same thing in each one. So we have a plus b, and then on the other polynomial, we have a minus b. So they're exactly the same terms, except different signs. So a lot of times what people will try to do is use the FOIL method. Nothing wrong with that. You'll notice that what's going to happen when we do that, something very special which helps you with this rule. So a times a will give us a squared. A times a negative b gives us a negative ab. Then we do b times our b and our b times a, our little smiley face. We end up with a positive ab here. And then a negative b squared here. These middle terms, we have a negative ab and a positive ab, they actually cancel out. And we're left with just a squared minus b squared. So if you'll notice in the original problem, we had one negative and one positive. That is going to cause those middle terms to cancel each other out. So I'm going to give you a couple of these problems and see how quickly you can do them. I'll do one with you, and then I'll give you the other ones to do on your own. So this is the first one. M plus 7 and M minus 7. So we'll M and M, we're going to square the first term, M squared. And then we know the middle terms are going to cancel out because they're exactly the same numbers, but they're different signs here. So we're not going to have a middle term, so we just worry about the end. So I have a positive and a negative, so I'm going to have a negative 49. What we end up getting is a difference of squares. This will come back later in another unit. So remember the words, difference of squares. So when we see this, we know that we write the form this way, difference of squares. Okay, I'm going to give you a few on your own. And you'll pause the video and see how quickly you can do them. So here's the first one, 2x plus 3 and 2x minus 3. And then the other one we'll do is 5x squared, a little tougher, minus 3y squared. And we'll do 5x squared plus 3y squared. All right, pause and see how quickly you can do those. All right, how did you do with those? The first one should have been pretty easy. We're just literally multiplying the 2x times the 2x. We got 4x, and it's squared because we had 1 here and a 1 here. We have no middle term because they're exactly the same with different signs, so we know the middle term will cancel out. So a positive and a negative gives us a negative 9. Here, we've got to be careful. When we multiply 5 times 5, 25, easily we squared the first term. And when we square that first term, it's like saying 5x squared is squared. So we know this is squared, and then a power raised to a power. That's where we got the 4. We know the middle term is going to cancel out, so then we're just taking a negative and a positive, knowing it's going to be a negative here. And then we have 3 times 3 gives us a 9, and then y squared. So this is the same thing as saying 3y squared raised to the second power. So we square here, and a power raised to a power. Remember our exponent rules for there. This, again, is called a difference of squares. Now let's talk about our procedures. Make sure you have them written down so you have them to look back on. So our procedure for this is as follows. We see which rule we could use. So let's see which one. If you look at something and you think, well, there's got to be a quicker way, work smarter, not harder. So see which rule is being used. And if you can use a rule, sometimes might play tricks on you. If you see, like our last rule, the C rule, and we have A plus B times A plus B, that's actually like the first rule, A rule. So pay attention to those signs and what you can actually do. So always look to see if you can use a rule. If you can, follow the rule. If not, just use the FOIL method, or as we call it, the distributive or the smiley face man, to solve the problem, just like we've learned before. All right, now let's practice.